In this video, I'll share everything I wish I knew before applying for and passing the CBAP exam, including practical tips for the application, preparation, and the exam day itself. My name is Andrei and I'm a certified business analysis professional. If you are planning to take the CBAP from IBA or maybe you've already started your preparation, this video will save you time, nerves, and probably a few gray hairs. I know, because I even lost some of mine along the way. When I started my own CBAP journey, I already knew Babok pretty well, so I knew this wouldn't be an easy ride. It's a lot to absorb and it takes real focus and consistency. But don't worry, I'm here to make it easier for you. I'll walk you through exactly what worked for me and the mistakes I made, and the tips and tricks that helped me to pass on the first try. So, grab your coffee or something stronger if you're deep in study mode, and let's start with the application process. The application process is pretty straightforward overall, but there are a few important things you should know before you start. First, don't pay the application fee until you're absolutely sure you meet all the requirements. You actually have to pay first before you can even start filling out the application. And the fee is non-refundable and non-transferable. This is based on IBA's official policy. When I applied, I thought, alright, I'll just pay now, that will keep me accountable and make sure I finish the application. And then I found out that I had only 7 days to complete the entire thing. Luckily, I already had enough PDUs and work experience hours, but I remember thinking, yeah, this could have gone wrong fast. So, learn from me. Get your PDUs and work hours ready before you pay. And once your application is approved, you'll have 1 full year to schedule and pass the exam. That's your preparation window. A good time to plan your study process, improve weak areas, and make sure you're ready before booking your exam date. Now, about those work experience hours. To qualify for CBAP, you'll need at least 7,500 hours of business analysis work within the last 10 years and at least 900 hours in 4 out of 6 Babok knowledge areas. I'll leave 2 useful links in the description. The first one is a working days calculator, because you can't just multiply 5 work days by 4 weeks and call it a month. Some months have public holidays, you might take vacations, and all of that affects your real working days count. The second one is a spreadsheet, where you'll enter that number and then distribute your experience hours across Babok knowledge areas. There, you'll also need to specify what percentage of your total time was spent on business analysis activities. And here is a tip, try not to exceed 80%, because in real life you usually perform other tasks too. For example, testing software or watching YouTube doesn't count as business analysis work. Here is what my own average breakdown looked like. Each company I worked for has a slightly different focus, but this is roughly what I submitted in my final application. Next, you'll need to provide 2 references. They can be your manager, client, or even someone who's already a CBAP recipient. Ideally, at least one of them should have known you for 6 months or longer. You'll need to enter their work email and phone number, so make sure to tell them in advance that you'll listed them. That way, they'll be ready to answer if IBA contacts them, and you'll know they'll say all the, let's say, right things about you. Lastly, I'll leave a link in the description to the official IBA document that walks you through the step-by-step application process. Once you've done all of that, hours calculated, PDUs ready, and reference confirmed, you're in a great position to move forward. Alright, now let's talk about preparation. Once your application is approved, the real journey begins. And trust me, this part takes time and discipline. Let's start with the toolset I used. The Babok guide, obviously, the CCBA and CBAP certification study guide by Estelle Lessing, and the online exam from Watermark Learning. This combo worked perfectly for me. The study guide is written in simpler language, so it's great for understanding the concepts before you dive into the more formal Babok wording. Here is how I structured my first round of preparation. I started by reading a chapter or knowledge area in the Estelle Lessing study guide. Then, I immediately read the same section in Babok to connect what I learned. And right after that, I did mock tests. Short drills focused on that specific knowledge area. This gave me a rhythm. Read, learn, test, repeat. It kept me moving and made sure I wasn't just reading, I was actually learning. Now, one of the most helpful things I did was creating mind maps and mnemonics. And I highly recommend making your own, don't just copy someone else's. When you draw or write it yourself, you understand and remember it much better. I used Miro for this. And about mnemonics. That's just a fancy word for short memory trick. For example, you probably know SMART. Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. It's the same logic but for business analysis concepts. So whenever you find a list that's hard to memorize, create a short, funny or weird phrase to help you recall it later. After finishing my first full round, I didn't return to the study guide anymore. From there, I focused only on Babok itself and the full exam simulations from Watermark Learning. And now, a really important part, how I use those Watermark simulations. Normally, people take a full exam and check their answers only at the end. But that's not the most efficient way. Here is what I did instead. I opened the full exam, immediately jumped to the last question and submitted it. That way it was marked as completed and I could now open it and see all the answers while reviewing. Then I started working through the questions one by one, and after each question I could instantly check if I was right. If I got it wrong, I read Watermark's explanations and right away went to the referenced Babok chapter to reread that concept. This approach saves a ton of time because you don't have to go back later and reanalyze what went wrong. You fix it immediately, while your brain still remembers the question. Watermark's explanations are great because they point you directly to the exact Babok section you should review. And if you use IBA web version of Babok, you can find those sections super fast. It's really easy to navigate. If you want to track your progress, you can still do it in a separate spreadsheet on your own. And one more thing, I recommend practicing the full exam, not just topic-based drills, because the full version mixes all the knowledge areas together. And that helps you learn to recognize which knowledge area or task each question belongs to. That's exactly how the real CBAP exam feels. No one tells you this next question is from elicitation and collaboration. So this kind of practice prepares your brain for the real thing. In short, use your first round to understand the material and your second round to master the exam logic. Alright, next, let's talk about something easier but still worth mentioning, exam registration. The exam registration process is pretty simple, but there is one small detail that's easy to miss. When you register, you'll see an option to upload your ID photo. It's optional and that's why many people skip it, but I really suggest doing it right away. If you don't upload it during registration, you'll have to do it right before the exam, and that's when a lot of people face technical issues. Sometimes the camera doesn't connect or the file doesn't upload and they end up waiting for support to help. Yes, the issue usually gets fixed, but it's an unnecessary distraction before the exam. So, just upload your ID photo when registering. It takes 2 minutes and saves you from that extra hassle later. Alright, let's talk about the exam itself. The first thing I want to say, the exam is long. 3.5 hours. It sounds like a lot, but trust me, it goes by fast. So make sure you're comfortable. Get a good chair, test your camera and internet connection, and make sure nothing around will distract you. Now, let's go through a few practical things. You're allowed to have 2 blank papers, a pen, and a bottle of water without labels. That's it. Before the exam starts, the proctor will check your room through the camera. They will ask you to show what's near your laptop, under the desk, and sometimes even behind the monitor. If you have a TV in your room, IBA rules say it must not be visible. I had one, so I just covered it with a blanket, and that worked perfectly fine. Also, read all IBA exam restrictions carefully. I'll leave the official link in the description. During the check-in, you'll have a small chat with your proctor. They're usually polite and professional. If you have any small issues, like I had a running nose, you can ask if something's allowed. For example, I asked if I could keep a napkin near me, and the proctor said yes. So don't be afraid to clarify small things like that before the exam starts. Now, about the camera setup. You will have to show your desk area and surroundings, and I had an external webcam ready, but I didn't even need it. The integrated camera on my laptop was totally fine, so don't worry about that. Let's talk about the questions. The first around 44 questions are case studies. After that you get regular multiple choice questions. If you practice with Watermark, you'll notice that in their simulation case studies are mixed with the other questions. But in the real exam, all case studies come first. I just thought you should consider this. I found that case studies on the real exam were a bit harder than in Watermark, but the regular questions were slightly easier. One thing I tried, and I saw this advice on Reddit, was to write down all the knowledge areas and tasks on paper before starting. For some reason it felt useful during my practice tests, but in the real exam it didn't help much, so I wouldn't waste time on it. Now, a small but very important part, the toilet thing. Don't drink too much water before or during the exam. Even though IABA says you can take a 15-minute break, you're still required to stay in front of a camera. You can stretch or move a bit, but you're not allowed to leave the room, so be prepared for that. If you think it's going to be a problem, you can check if there is an option to take the exam at the testing center. This option is available in some countries. In that case, you'll be able to take a normal toilet break. And that's pretty much it. 3.5 hours later, you finally press that last button. Take a deep breath and wait for the result. That moment feels amazing. That's how I passed the CBAP, from the first application step all the way to the exam itself. I hope these tips will help you prepare with less stress and more confidence. If you're planning to apply or you're already studying, I'd really love to hear how it's going for you. Leave a comment in the section below. Also, if this video was helpful, please like, subscribe and share it with someone who's also preparing for their certification. It really helps support the channel and motivates me to keep making more videos like this one. Thanks for watching and good luck on your CBAP journey.